I am a fan of Ant-Man. Most people were not. And if they were a fan of it, it still was with some stipulations. But that's all of us. With that being said, I was someone who wasn't as mad at the writing of the movie. Writing of some lines here and there, sure, I can agree. But I wasn't too mad at the story, what's being told and what we've been given, right? When it comes to that story. I'm scared, though, because that's why he's saying, my guy. Because in the last couple weeks, also shout out Jeff Loveness, because obviously it's a hard, it's a hard job, bro. We gonna get into it a little bit, but like, writing, forget Ant-Man. Writing any Avengers movie has got to be hard. Any Avengers movie.
There's a lot of pressure there, man. Especially coming after Infinity War and Endgame. It's a lot.
That's why you going farther. I'm like, any Avengers movie, the first one had to be hard.
Yeah.
That might be the easiest because you have a fresh slate. You know, you can pick any comic book. There's things you can do, right? But it's still hard. Like, you know what I mean? There's so many people's interactions and the chemistry that you have to make sure that they have, not just off of the acting, that's them, but like the lines, to make sure that each character that you probably never wrote for before, or if so, maybe only one person, which is most of these writers for these Avengers movies, only worked on like one movie before. Like with the Russo brothers, they're writers for that. They wrote what before? It was something. I think
I want to say Civil War, maybe.
I think so. I think they worked with the Russo brothers for most of the Russo brothers things. So
it was a collaborative.
It
was a collaborative
exactly,
effort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with that, like, I know how much pressure that takes, but with that being said, like, Jeff Loveness made me a little nervous. He just keeps speaking about things in interviews in a way where, all right, let's just read the quotes. Because I'm like, how do I even say this?
We can start with the question though. So this was on Gizmodo. Shout out to them.
Yes.
So speaking of, this is the question that was asked to Jeff Loveness. So speaking of King, obviously you're writing him again in Avengers Kang Dynasty. There's got to be an interesting process because you're writing this movie based on all these other movies, most of which don't exist yet. Some of them exist in different forms, but in others, there are no actors, no directors, as far as we know. That's my parentheses. What's it like writing a movie when you have all these sort of raw materials that's not even formed yet? Loveness replies, yeah, it's definitely a tricky thing, but much like when I took on this Ant-Man job, I can't really focus on that outside stuff. I have just got to lay down the bones of a good story, hopefully, and find the characters that I want to tell it. And then it becomes a game of ping pong with the other people. Like whoever comes on and does Fantastic Four or Blade, or I'm probably not even using those characters, you know, but it all informs itself. And so you just keep an ear open if someone says, hey, if Blade wants to jump in, go for it, man. But it's up to me to focus on my movie and, you know, work with Waldron a little bit on his thing. Waldron is writing Secret Wars to make sure it all kind of makes sense. But I think the second that you start looking at the 25 other things coming out, you get a little lost in the sauce.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to react first. I'm going to go first. Because I get him, and I know you're gonna say like I get him. I get what he's trying to say. Mm-hmm. It's how you say things. I know we've all had that. Hopefully, your parents have taught you that lesson in your life. It's not always what you say; it's how you say it. It can be a different meaning,
sure,
even if you don't mean it to be. You know what I mean? That it can just be how people perceive things. That's perception. But it's either that you don't care about that, which is dope too, because you're like, I'm doing what I do anyway. I'm gonna write this joint, and who cares, right? Or you're trying to play with our brains because, yeah, you should focus on this story that you're trying to have right here. Yes, but also, do you know that those 25 other movies have to make sense with your movie? Are you aware of that? Because it's interesting for him to say something like, "Find the characters that I want to tell it." Instead of find the characters that make sense for the story, after saying a line that says, I just have to lay down the bones of a good story, hopefully, but then say find the characters I want to tell it. I'm just confused. You know?
I'm going to shoot him some bail on that because it's
because I don't even want to be dissing him. I'm a fan of
I got a
the Ant-Man writing.
All right, so because we don't know the process of writing a Marvel movie, right?
I don't got a clue.
And I would love to know. I mean, we know little things from what people say here and there, right? But like, we don't know like that first meeting. Like once you get the job and then you sit down with Kevin Feige and y'all really hash things out. What is that conversation like? You don't know if it's like, All right, so
I might hear you about it.
you get a list. You get a list.
Right.
Of people.
Okay.
All right, so these people on the table to use. You can use any of these people. So I feel like maybe that is something that he. Let me take that back. Maybe it's some information that he's privy of that he's not allowed to say is the reason why he's saying the things
the way he's saying
things.
it.
But again,
I hear that.
That's also assuming, so we don't know.
Exactly right. You're playing devil's advocate.
I am.
I hear it though, because that's why I don't want to. Because of those reasons, I don't even want to make it sound like I'm dissing them. I'm really not. I'm just. This was the first time I was nervous about the writing of Kang Dynasty. I know everyone is nervous. A lot of people are like, "Oh my god, I hated it, man," or the writing and so many jokes, and just have different opinions. I get that, but it didn't make me be like, "Damn, well, probably can kill another movie." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But some of the quotes here just threw me off a little bit. It's again exactly what you said. Maybe he's like, I can only work with these, but it doesn't sound like it when you say things like, I'm probably not even using Fantastic Four Blade anyway, but I need to keep an ear open if someone says, hey, if Blade wants to jump in, go for it. That line don't even make sense in itself. Who gonna say, hey, Blade wants to go in? Not Marshall Ali, not Kevin. Blade wants to hop into your movie, bro. Like, let him slide real quick. I know what he's trying to say, but wording is everything. Maybe I'm too specific of a person. I'm a very detailed guy with stuff like that, and like that threw me off.
To me, another shooting some bell.
Come on,
but the format of this interview doesn't necessarily give him any
help.
Don't do him any favors.
Any help.
Because like a lot of things can get lost in translation when you're writing stuff. So we don't know the tone that he said this stuff in. He could have been joking. It could have been some type of cheeky stuff.
Like I said about when you said Simu before, I wanted to know if I could watch him say this. You know what I'm saying? I hear exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, when you get into like writing, text-based interviews and stuff like that, it gets a little. Depending on what people say, you can always lose things in translation a little bit.
Jeez, that's why some people can't even text right.
Exactly,
it's the same reason.
Exactly,
it's the same reason.
But I'm just trying to shoot him some bell. Again, I had my issues with Ant-Man Quantumania,
right? And more than me, like I know there's writing things. You're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Are you afraid? If take this article away, how do you feel about him writing Kang Dynasty?
I am slightly
nervous, or you're just cautious.
Yeah, cautious. More cautious than anything. I'm cautious, but the only reason I'm not like over the deep end as far as like feeling a way about him writing that movie is because one, Kevin Feige. Two,
always.
I know that they're not just gonna let that fly.
That's what I keep thinking, bro.
A lot of eyes being on it because they understand. I would hope they would understand that it's a lot on these joints. You know what I mean? It's a lot. People, because I feel like the last few Marvel movies doing what they did. Now, it's a Marvel movie. They're going to do their numbers on whatever. People are going to feel how they feel, whatever. But you can't discount the fact that Phase 4 was one of the most divisive phases, period, of this Marvel cinematic. You're saying fan and critic reception.
Okay.
Yeah,
got it.
On these things, right?
Got it. Mm-hmm.
So, however you feel about it, you can't say that it's not been a thing.
It's still a thing.
It's
a thing.
It's still a thing, right? And Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania being the first film of Phase 5.
That also includes Kang.
It does, but it's not.
No. I'm with you. I'm saying that also includes the big bad of this whole thing.
Right.
And it not being a certain way, right?
Right. It just didn't please everybody like Marvel movies are used to pleasing a larger majority of people. You know what I mean? Obviously.
And I know that's a whole conversation
art
in
is
itself
subjective,
too.
right? So
right. I'm about to say, everybody it's also an Ant-Man film, and that could get a whole thing.
Exactly.
So I hear you.
But I say all that to say, they didn't really do Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars favors by these other movies not doing not doing well. I want to word this right.
Not being received.
Yes,
the best
way. Because now you're adding pressure to the
top of each other.
Now you're adding pressure on top of these Avengers movies that they already had because we got Infinity War and Endgame doing what they did, which were, like he said in another interview, generational. It's epic. These are big, massive films that did billions and billions of dollars, right?
And not even just that, because I want to stick on that for a sec. We talked about that a little before the pod.
Yeah.
Please remember your point, though.
No, for
I don't want
sure.
to get off it. Yeah. It's not just that they did amazing and that they made $1 billion and it's the biggest movies ever, bro. The comic book nerdy fan in us, 40-year-olds that, like, my mom loves Infinity. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, the world saw those movies and were like, this is perfect. if you don't feel that way, whatever. You can have your own opinion. But I'm saying most of us that saw Infinity War and Endgame were like, the writing of these characters is perfect. The way that they were used. Remember in Endgame where like everyone gets their moment to shine down to Groot being the literal arm? Like that whole set, like every single person gets a time to shine. And there's how many more characters do we have now?
It's even more.
It's maybe in double digits more.
Yeah.
Possibly. So it's like, yeah, I just wanted to emphasize it's not just how big Infinity War did.
It's the quality
it's
of it.
Everything. It's everything. Infinity War was another. We've never seen what that was ever.
Yeah.
And it was only a couple years ago from y'all. So yeah, just to
go back to that point and piggybacking off what you're saying, that those movies being what they are and what it and what they represent for people, right?
Yes.
They're so it's I just feel like maybe maybe the way he went about saying things, it feels lightly, right? It feels like he
felt like he just playing. Yeah.
But like the thing is, like again, like I was saying, he's in the offices, he's in those rooms, he's in those writer rooms, he's in the he is privy to information that we do not have,
That's
right?
true. That's true.
So to say you should be we seen his reactions to the not good reception of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. He talked about how he felt a little way about it, and then he just moved on. Like,
but I ain't even like that. But I don't know if you want to talk about that. So
we don't got to get too deep.
We don't. Right. I don't want to.
I just said that to say like maybe you should be paying attention to that a little bit. Maybe
just a little bit, bro. And this coming from somebody who was also like, bro, if you trust in yourself, we creatives. You know what I'm saying? Sure. Like, nah, bro.
Sean's out right now.
Come on, forever. Talk that talk. 724 coming soon. 724 coming soon.
Yes.
But no, seriously, it's like I get it. You know what I mean? Like Michael Cauldron, the same or Waldron. I don't want to.
Michael Waldron.
Waldron, same person that wrote Loki did Doctor Strange, and we feel two different ways. I know it's shown in a movie, but we feel very two different ways about these things, right? So like, I'm gonna give him benefit of the doubt. Like, hey man, do what you feel is best, I guess, to an extent, but also like, just maybe listen to not all the critics, but ones that actually are trying to give critique.
No, sure.
Not just because 80% of Marvel hate right now is just hate because it's popular. I don't care what nobody tell me. It's just because they're the most popular thing in the world.
Don't wanna see you drown with your people.